This story was told to me by David. That night's incident, when all those friends and family were together. But after what happened to them, no one remained the same. David says, you know, there are some memories that cannot be forgotten even if you want to. I also wish that I could forget, but whenever in the silence of the night the wind strikes the window, I again reach that forest, that same house where everything happened. It was the holiday season. Michael had rented an old country house. This house was far from the city, right in the middle of the dense forest. Outside, tall trees, inside the old smell of wood, and the floor planks which creaked whenever one stepped on them. There were 7 people. Michael, responsible but a rather serious kind of person. His sister Anna, brave and practical. David, cousin, who was also the main narrator. Laura, cheerful, talkative, but a girl scared from the heart. Chris, always making fun, never taking anything seriously. Sam and Kathy, 2 other close friends, both very calm and simple. In the evening, they all reached there. Darkness was spreading outside, and in the forest air there was a strange kind of chill. Seeing the house, Chris laughed and said, "Wow, this looks exactly like a horror movie set. Just need a ghost to come right now and we all will start running." Laura rolled her eyes at his words. "Don't be stupid. I'm already scared. There's so much silence here." Anna interrupted in between. "There's no need to be scared. This is only an old house and we are all together. Relax." After dinner, all sat in the drawing room. The old fireplace was burning, spreading the smell of wood. David played music in his mobile. Chris laughed loudly and said, "Come on, let's tell ghost stories. Who will start?" Laura immediately raised a hand. "No. Don't tell me. I won't be able to sleep at night." Michael laughed and said, "You all are crazy. This place was taken for rest, and you people are only remembering ghosts." Chris insisted and started telling a story. He made up a tale about some girl who got trapped in such a house. Everyone was laughing, but Laura actually got nervous. Suddenly, the light went out. The whole room drowned in darkness. Everyone got startled. Kathy said in fear, Maybe electricity went." Michael took a torch and went outside to check the fuse. The rest kept sitting with their mobile lights on. After some time, electricity came back. Chris mocked, "Wow, amazing. Perfect horror effect. Feels like the ghost is also playing with us." Laura's voice was trembling. "This is not funny, Chris. I just saw someone standing near the door." Everyone turned and looked at her in surprise. Argument and tension. Anna immediately said, "Maybe you imagined it. The trees outside were moving in the wind." Laura said in a hard tone, "No, I am not lying. Someone was there, just about to step inside." Chris laughed loudly. "Then we should say, 'Welcome to the party, Mr. Ghost.'" Everyone laughed, but David saw fear in Laura's eyes. She was not lying. After quite some time, all went to their rooms to sleep. The house was big, but every room felt cold and strange. Chris and Sam were in one room. Michael, Anna, and David had separate rooms. Laura and Kathy decided to sleep together. In the silence came the sound of some wooden door creaking far away. David turned to the side, thinking maybe someone went down to drink water. But after some time, the sound came again, as if someone was slowly walking in the hallway. The sound of the floor planks pressing was absolutely clear. David gathered courage, got up from the bed, and slowly opened the door. It was dark. Only at the end of the hallway, faint moonlight was coming from the window. Suddenly, he saw a shadow was moving on the wall as if someone was standing there. But when he went near and saw, there was nothing. He went back into the room, his heart beating fast. In the morning, everyone was having breakfast. Chris, as always, was joking, but Laura was completely silent. David, too, was lost in thought. Michael told everyone, "Today in the day we will explore the forest. Forget the things of the night. They were only illusions." David didn't say anything at that moment, but deep in his heart he was sure that what he had seen last night was not an illusion. David says, "The morning light had lessened the fear of the house a little. But inside my heart that night was still alive. I tried to convince myself that maybe all that was my imagination. But the silence on Laura's face was telling me that she too had seen something." After breakfast, all decided to explore the forest. Outside, the air was fresh, birds' sounds were coming, and sunlight was filtering down through the leaves of the trees. Chris was in the mood to make everyone laugh. "Look, this is the daytime scene of a horror movie. All happily roaming. By evening, the ghost will eat someone again." Anna glared at him. "At least sometimes be serious, Chris. Your stupid jokes ruin everyone's mood." Laura was walking along with Kathy. Her eyes kept turning back again and again, as if someone was coming behind them. David said to her in a low voice, "Are you okay?" Laura gave a short reply, "No, someone is watching us." David peered into the trees, but there was nothing. After walking a little further, they found an old wooden board on which dust and moss had gathered. Sam cleaned it, and the writing came out in front. "Ashford Manor, private property." Michael said in surprise, "This is strange. When I read at the time of booking, the name of this house was something else." Kathy said fearfully, "Maybe this house was once known by some other name." Chris smiled and said, "Or maybe this is the clue that a murder happened here. Now everyone get ready. Who will be the next victim?" Anna, irritated, grabbed his arm. "Enough, Chris." All looked at each other and became silent. Coming back, all made a plan for BBQ. The atmosphere became light. Music was playing. Everyone was laughing. For some moments, David felt that maybe the last night's imagination was really only a mental play. But when he went to the kitchen to get water, suddenly outside the window, he saw someone standing. A dark shadow, completely still, as if it was watching everyone inside. David ran and opened the door and went outside, but there was nothing. Coming back, he didn't tell anything to the others. He decided that for now, he would not share this fear with anyone. After dinner, all again gathered in the drawing room. The fireplace was burning. With the flames, shadows were dancing on the walls. Chris again started a ghost story. Laura said in a hard tone, "Chris, if you made one more joke, then I will go upstairs into my room." Chris laughed and raised his hands. All right, I am silent." Suddenly, there was a loud bang on the door. All got startled. Michael immediately got up and went outside, but there was nothing there. Only between the trees the wind was blowing. When he came back, Laura said in a trembling voice, "He is right here. He wants to come inside." Late at night, all went into their rooms. David tried to sleep, but again the same sound. The creaking of the hallway's floor planks, the slowly approaching sound of footsteps. David opened the door. In the hallway, it was dark, but this time he clearly saw a tall shadow whose face was completely blurred was standing at the end of the hallway. David switched on the torch. As soon as the light fell, The shadow disappeared. His breath stopped. When he came back into the room, he saw, near the window, exactly inside, someone had scratched a long mark of a hand on the glass. In the morning, the lack of sleep was clearly visible on everyone's faces. Even Chris admitted that at night he had heard some strange sounds. Laura was completely silent. Michael told everyone, "We have to decide. If this is not only imagination, then this house is not safe." In David's heart, a terrifying thought arose. Maybe this is not only the story of the house. Maybe this place will not let us leave at all. David says, "That night, maybe it was the longest night of my life. Even after morning came, it felt like the fear had not left us." At the breakfast table, everyone was sitting silently. Chris, who always kept laughing, now looked somewhat dull. Laura's hands were trembling. She couldn't even hold the teacup properly. Michael looked at everyone and said, "We have to decide. This house is strange. If anyone wants to leave, we can leave today itself." Anna replied, "I had seen the car's tires. Both front tires are punctured." Everyone was shocked. Sam asked, "There were no stones or nails anywhere to be seen." It looked like someone had deliberately cut them. Chris, trying to laugh, said, "So the ghost also has a knife." But there was now a tremble in his laughter. In the afternoon, all went outside to check the tires. The car was really standing in a bad condition. Anna said, "There's no workshop nearby, at least 20 miles away, and here network is also hardly available." Chris lifted his mobile and said, "Signal 0. Means we are officially stuck." Laura held Kathy's hand and said slowly, "I told you, he will not let us go." Near evening, when the sun was setting, David saw a strange sight at the edge of the forest. Far between the trees, someone was standing, completely still, completely silent. A tall, blurred figure. David shouted and called everyone, but as soon as the rest ran, that figure disappeared. Chris said, "Man, these are all illusions. If someone was there, we all would have seen." David said angrily, "This is not illusion. I have seen it clearly." Laura nodded at his words. "He is staring at us. All the time." As darkness spread, everyone gathered in the drawing room. Logs were burning in the fireplace, but the light of that fire was making the shadows on the walls even more terrifying. Chris took out a wine bottle. "If we are stuck here anyway, then at least let's enjoy a little." Anna said in a harsh tone, "This is not a joke, Chris. I have seen someone walking in the hallway." Hearing this, everyone went silent. Around midnight, suddenly a loud bang came from the upper floor. Everyone got startled and ran upstairs. At the end of the hallway was Chris's room. The door was half open. When everyone went inside, Chris was nowhere. The room's window was fully open. From below, in the grass, came the sound of a heavy thing falling. Everyone ran towards the window, and on the ground below, Chris's body was lying. His body was twisted in a strange angle, as if someone had forcefully pushed him. But near the window, there was no mark, no evidence. Laura's scream echoed, "I told you, he will not leave us." Everyone ran down and looked at Chris's body. He was dead. But the most terrifying thing was the horror frozen on his face. Eyes completely open, as if before dying, he had seen something unspeakable. Sam, trembling, said, "This was not an accident. Someone has killed him." In David's heart, only one thought came. Now the game has begun. Who will be next? David says, "After Chris's death, we all became like stone statues." No one could believe that just moments ago our friend was alive, and now he was lying on the ground like a lifeless body. Anna, crying, said, How can this be? He could not have fallen from the window himself. Michael, clenching his teeth, said, Someone pushed him. Laura spoke in a trembling voice. I saw someone behind him. A dark shadow, right near the window. Kathy held her hand. Laura, we're all scared. Maybe it was just a play of light and shadow. Sam said in a harsh tone, It was not a play of light. Whatever this is, now it will finish us one by one. Everyone came back to the drawing room. Chris's body had been covered downstairs, but the weight of his presence was still hanging over all of them. Michael said, We have to try to get out right now. Even on foot, but we cannot spend another night here. Anna agreed. Yes, this house is devouring us. But David spoke in a low voice. Do you think it is only the house? I feel as if this place will not let us leave at all. Everyone went silent. Night grew deeper. The fire in the fireplace had died out, and a heavy stillness filled the house. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps slowly descending the stairs came. Everyone turned in shock, but when light fell on the last step of the staircase, there was no one there. Laura screamed, He is here! He is watching us! David decided he would stay silent no longer. He told everyone that the previous night he too had seen the shadow in the hallway, and in the morning there were scratch marks on the window glass. Michael said angrily, Why didn't you tell us before? David replied, I was scared. I wanted it to be an illusion, but now it is real. Anna said, Maybe we should know something about this house. What really is this Ashford Manor? Sam began pulling out papers from an old cupboard. After a while, he found an old diary-like notebook. The pages had yellowed, but the writing could still be read. He does not let us go. He is tied to the darkness. Whenever someone comes here, he makes them part of his game. One by one, he takes them all. Laura's hands began to tremble. This is about him. Suddenly, all the lights in the room went out. Darkness spread. David turned on the torch of his phone. In the light, a dark shadow appeared on the wall, tall, strange, face completely blurred. It was slowly moving, as if reaching out to grab someone. Kathy screamed, He is with us! Everyone ran to open the door, but the door was locked, as if someone had bolted it from the outside. The shadow came closer, closer and closer. Suddenly, the fireplace lit itself. Flames filled the room with light, and that shadow vanished for a moment. All of them, drenched in sweat, looked at each other. But one thing became clear to everyone. This was not just the story of a house. This was something else, something trapped between the living and the dead. A thought struck David's heart. Last night was Chris's. But whose turn is next? David says, that night, it turned out to be the most terrifying night of our lives. And it was the night that changed us forever. After Chris's death, one thought filled all our hearts. If we do nothing, we will all be finished. Michael said, We need to read this diary carefully. Maybe it holds a way out. Anna flipped the pages. Suddenly, her eyes froze on a line. He catches those who are afraid. The greater the fear, the stronger he becomes. Laura, trembling, said, Then, we are already under his control. Around 2 a.m, the same cold wind swept through the room again. The doors slammed shut on their own. The windows rattled violently. Suddenly, a scream came from the hallway. It was Kathy. Everyone rushed to her room. She stood against the wall, shaking. And in front of her, that shadow appeared again. This time it was closer, clearer. Tall figure, blurred face, and in place of eyes, 2 deep black holes. Michael shouted, "Downstairs! We'll break the window and get out." They all ran towards the staircase. But halfway down, suddenly Chris's voice echoed, "Where are you going?" They all froze. In the darkness below, it was not Chris's body, but Chris himself standing there. Yet his face was torn, eyes empty, and on his lips a horrifying smile. Laura screamed, "That is not him. It's him, inside Chris's body." Anna loudly read from the diary. "He was once a man, the master of this house, the heir of Ashford Manor. He sacrificed his family to the darkness, and then was trapped in it himself. Now he hunts new people to keep himself alive." Sam shouted, "Which means he will never let us live." The shadow moved forward, closer and closer to each of them. Laura broke down crying, and suddenly her eyes rolled back. David tried to catch her, but she collapsed violently onto the ground. From her lips came another voice, heavy, inhuman. "This is my house. You all belong to me." Michael pushed everyone back and screamed, "If he grows strong from fear, then we will give him none." But even his own voice trembled. Suddenly the fireplace roared to life. Michael grabbed a burning log and lunged at the shadow. He screamed, "End it now!" The log struck the very heart of the shadow. A deafening scream echoed, and the room shook. For a few moments, the shadow was trapped in the light, and then it vanished with an explosion. When daylight entered the room in the morning, everyone stood in silence. But Michael was no longer there. Only his burned watch lay in the pile of ashes. Anna wept. Laura was unconscious. Sam said, "He saved us." David looked towards the sky, but in his heart a terrifying question lingered. Was it truly over? Or is he only waiting for us to leave? David says, "After that night, none of us were ever the same. Chris died, Michael sacrificed himself, and the rest of us became nothing more than living corpses. But sometimes, when the wind strikes against the window, I feel like he is still watching us. The story of Ashford Manor has not ended." This story was told to me by a girl whose name is Emily Fraser. Yes, what I'm about to share with you tonight is not some ordinary tale. It isn't from a dusty old book. It isn't the script of a forgotten film. This is the reality that kept repeating itself in someone's life. Emily grew up in a small yet beautiful town in Scotland. Cold mountain winds, deep forests, ancient buildings, and that eerie silence that fell as soon as the evening arrived. This was the world of her childhood. But behind all those breathtaking sights was a terror so dark it would change Emily's life forever. Emily was only 7 when she first saw something that etched fear into her heart for life. She was sitting in her room gathering up her toys when suddenly she noticed a dark figure standing in the corner. At first, she thought it was just a trick of the light, but then that figure moved. Her blood seemed to freeze. Her eyes widened. Her breath caught in her chest. And in the blink of an eye, that shadow disappeared. Emily told her mother about it, but her mother only smiled and said, "Probably a dream. Or maybe you've been listening to too many stories." But Emily was certain. What she saw was real. A few nights later, another incident struck. Emily was asleep when she suddenly heard a faint whisper coming from under her bed. She opened her frightened eyes and strained to listen. The words weren't clear, but it was definitely a human voice. And the most terrifying part was the whisper kept repeating her name. Emily. Emily. She was just about to scream when the sound stopped. Silence fell once more across the room. The next morning, she told her mother again, but once more, no one believed her. As years passed, these encounters became almost routine. Sometimes she would see a pair of eyes peeking from outside her window. Sometimes a different reflection flickered across her wardrobe mirror. Often, at night, she felt as though someone was standing right beside her bed. Yet, whenever she lit the lamp, nothing was there. Slowly, Emily learned to endure these terrors without breaking down. But deep inside, she always knew she was never truly alone. Time moved on. Emily grew older and left for a larger city to study nursing. She hoped that this new chapter would wipe away the horrors of her past. But the moment she began this journey, the shadows returned. During her very first year at college, she started witnessing strange, disturbing things. Late at night, in the hostel corridor, she would often see a nurse in a white uniform. The woman walked silently, moving farther down the hallway before vanishing into thin air. At first, Emily assumed she was a staff member, but one night she gathered the courage to ask, "Who's that nurse who walks here late at night?" Her roommates stared at her, puzzled. "What nurse? There's never anyone on duty at that hour." A chill ran down Emily's spine. Emily wasn't the only one. When she shared her experiences with the other girls, a few admitted that they too had seen a white figure drifting through the corridor. This was far worse than hallucination. If it was only her imagination, maybe she could dismiss it. But now, others had seen it too. That made it real, terrifyingly real. And then, an even darker thought began to grow in Emily's mind. Is this place haunted? Or are these spirits attached to me? Do they follow me everywhere I go? That question began to haunt her even more than the shadows themselves. The more she thought about it, the more her fear grew. Emily was now living in her nursing college hostel. From the outside, her life looked perfect. New friends, a new place, new dreams. But the truth was, every day carried with it an invisible terror. One night, Emily was studying late. The hostel corridor was drowning in silence. Suddenly, faint footsteps echoed through the hallway. She moved closer to the door and peeked outside. There she was again, the nurse in the white uniform. The nurse's back was turned. She walked slowly, her footsteps echoing in the stillness. Emily's heartbeat quickened. She knew this moment would vanish in the blink of an eye. Gathering her courage, she called out, "Hello? Who are you?" The nurse stopped. Slowly, she turned her head, and where her face should have been, there was nothing but a pitch-black void. A muffled scream escaped Emily's throat as she slammed the door shut. The next morning, she told her roommate what had happened. At first, her roommate laughed, but then, lowering her voice, she admitted, "Last night, I saw someone in the corridor too, but when I went closer, there was no one." A chill ran down Emily's spine. This was no longer a figment of her imagination. And then came the nightmares. Every night, Emily dreamed that a shadow crept into her room. Sometimes it whispered into her ear. Sometimes it wrapped its hands around her throat. Often she would try to scream, but in her dream, no sound would come out. And when she woke up in the morning, there would be red marks on her neck. Sometimes even scratches. as if something had truly tried to strangle her. One day, she gathered the courage to confide in an elderly professor at the college. The old man listened carefully, then said, "Some spirits are bound to places, but some are bound to people. Wherever you go, they follow." Emily froze. "You mean they're following me?" The professor bowed his head in silence. The girls living in the hostel with Emily began to grow terrified. At night, they often felt cold gusts of air sweep through their rooms. Dishes would fall in the kitchen as if pushed by unseen hands. One night, one of the girls burst into tears and said, "Emily, these things are coming with you. Because of you, we're all living in fear." Emily's heart broke. She never wanted anyone else to suffer because of her. But now it was far beyond her control. Desperate for answers, Emily began digging through old books in the library. She discovered the term attachment spirits, or bound entities, beings that latch onto a human soul instead of a place. Some were believed to be protective, but others were destructive, feeding on fear and pain. A chilling thought gnawed at her mind. Are they my enemies, or are they my companions? The pressure became unbearable. Emily finally decided to leave the hostel. She rented a small flat on the edge of the city, hoping for a new beginning. But she had no idea. Her true nightmare was only just beginning. The flat was in an old crumbling building. On her very first night there, as she lay in bed, she heard the sound again, the slow, heavy footsteps. But this time, they weren't in the corridor. They were inside her room. She opened her eyes, and there, standing by her bed, was the same nurse in the white uniform. But this time, her face wasn't empty. This time, she wore a grotesque, twisted smile. Emily's scream echoed through the entire flat. Emily had moved into her new flat. She wanted life to return to normal, but the fear had followed her there too. And just when darkness seemed overwhelming, a little ray of light entered her life. She adopted a tiny kitten. She named her Luna. Luna became Emily's source of comfort. Whenever she was alone in her room, drowning in shadows of fear, Luna would curl up at her feet. The soft purrs and gentle eyes of the kitten gave Emily a strange peace. Emily began to believe that maybe Luna would drive away her nightmares. But she had no idea that this very cat would soon become her greatest trial. One evening, Emily took Luna outside to play. The street was quiet. Suddenly, a speeding car came rushing by, and in an instant, Luna was crushed beneath its wheels. Emily watched in horror as her innocent companion died before her eyes. She collapsed on the road, sobbing uncontrollably. People tried to console her, but nothing could fill the hollow inside her heart. That night, Emily could barely sleep. Around midnight, she suddenly felt something leap lightly onto her bed. She froze, then lit her lamp. And for a fleeting moment, she clearly saw Luna sitting at her feet. The kitten's eyes glowed softly in the dark. And then, the image vanished. A shiver ran through Emily's body. In the days that followed, the experiences grew stronger. Sometimes she heard tiny footsteps racing across her room. Sometimes dishes clattered in the kitchen, followed by a faint meow. Many nights she awoke to find the blanket shifting slightly, as if a small creature had curled up beside her. Emily wanted to believe this was only grief, only her imagination, but then came the evidence she couldn't deny. One morning, she saw Luna's old toy, moving on its own, as if someone invisible was playing with it. Luna's death had broken Emily, but her return? terrified her to the edge of madness. Often, through tears, she whispered, "If you're really here, touch me." Just once, and in those moments, she would feel the faintest brush on her hand, as if a tiny tongue was gently licking away her tears. One day, a friend came to visit her flat. Suddenly, the girl gasped and said, "Emily, I just saw a cat running through your room." Emily's face turned pale. "A cat? But my cat is dead." Her friend stared at the empty space, trembling. "Emily, something is here with you. This isn't just in your head." Emily's mind began to spiral. Is Luna's spirit truly with me? Or are the same dark entities simply using my grief to torment me? This question consumed her. Was she witnessing love or suffering? Then came the night that shattered everything. She was sleeping when her door creaked open on its own. A cold wind swept into the room. Emily's eyes snapped open, and in a single instant she saw all three of them. The black shadow standing in the corner, the white uniformed nurse in the hallway, and Luna perched on her bed, all together, as if they were bound to her. Forever. Emily screamed. The entire room seemed to freeze in a deathly chill. Now Emily knew the truth. These beings were tied to her. No matter where she went, they would follow. But one question still clawed at her soul. Are they with me because they care for me? Or because they will never let me go? Emily and her friends were trapped inside that abandoned camp house. The storm outside had calmed, but inside, silence itself had turned monstrous. The flickering lights, the groaning floorboards, and the shadows crawling across the walls. Their phones were dead all at once, as if something had deliberately cut them off from the world. This can't be real. This must be a nightmare, one of the girls whispered. But the nightmare became reality when Emily noticed something on the wall. The old family portrait that always hung there began to change. The faces of the family shifted, their eyes stretched wider and wider, their lips twisted into poisonous grins, and the children's tiny hands dripped with fresh blood. At exactly midnight, the old clock struck 12. And then, from the depths of that camp house, a laugh echoed. It wasn't human, neither male nor female. It sounded like hundreds of distorted recordings, played all at once. Emily's heart nearly stopped. Her friend Alice whispered with trembling lips, "That laugh. I've read about it before. It belongs to the restless spirit that was never buried." In the corner of the room stood an old rusted door, always locked, always still. But that night, it began to creak open on its own. No one dared to scream. All eyes widened as they saw, behind the door, there was no room. There was only a vast, endless void, a bottomless pit of darkness. And from that abyss rose not wind, but the stench of rotting flesh. And then came the lullaby. A voice, soft yet dreadful. "Sleep, little one. Sleep forever." Suddenly, one of Emily's friends was yanked into the air, dragged screaming into the abyss. Her cry was swallowed whole by the darkness. The rest of them pressed against the walls, paralyzed with terror. Emily, summoning every ounce of courage, rushed forward to slam the door shut. But before she could, a skeletal hand shot out from the void and clamped onto her wrist. For a single moment, life and death were staring each other in the eyes. Emily wrenched her arm free with all her strength, and the door slammed shut with a thunderous bang. But even after it was closed, her wrist bore deep purple bruises, proof that whatever was inside was no hallucination. The next morning, when local police arrived, the camp house was empty. No Emily, no friends, no bodies, only strange markings stained across the floor. Symbols written in something that looked disturbingly like blood. Months later, only one girl was found, Alice. But she was broken, her mind shattered. She kept repeating the same words over and over again. He will call us back. He will never let us go. When investigators dug deeper, the truth was revealed. That camp house had been abandoned for decades. Once, long ago, a family lived there. But one night, they vanished without a trace. Locals whispered that the family was part of a secret ritual, a ritual of sacrifice, one that demanded new souls every century. And the most terrifying part? The night Emily and her friends disappeared was the exact anniversary of the last sacrifice. Even today, villagers say, hey, if you spend the night near that camp house, you'll hear the laughter. The same twisted laughter that isn't human. Sometimes the portraits on the walls show your own face, and sometimes the rusted door opens again. But remember, that door doesn't lead to a room. It leads to a pit of endless darkness, a hell from which no one ever returns. Friends, this story was told to me, and believe me, the person telling it was trembling, their hands shaking so badly they could barely hold a glass of water. If you think this is all just a rumor, then go, spend a night near that abandoned camp house. But one warning: if you ever see that door creak open, never touch it.